Pages 33 and 34. Quote, think of emotions as energy in motion. When someone experiencing a strong emotion walks into a room, their energy, aside from their body language, is often very palpable. As you might expect, different emotions produce different frequencies. The frequencies of created, elevated emotions like love, joy, and gratitude are much higher than the emotions of stress, such as fear and anger, because they carry different levels of conscious intent and energy. So if we are recreating the past day after day, thinking the same thoughts and feeling the same emotions, we are broadcasting the same electromagnetic field over and over again, sending out the same energy with the same message. The only way we can change our lives is to change our energy, to change the electromagnetic field we are constantly broadcasting. In other words, to change our state of being, we have to change how we think and how we feel. End quote. As I was reading this, somebody recently told me about a book called Power versus Force. And in it, there's something called the Hawkins chart, which shows the vibratory rate of different emotions in different states of consciousness. So I've got that on my list of things to look at, but I just thought I would mention it here. This thing of understanding what we're broadcasting goes along with the concept of attracting what we're sending out. So if you're broadcasting a frequency or a signal of anger and fear, then that's what is going to be coming back to you. Pages 36 and 37, quote, if you focus your attention on specific imagery in your mind and become very present with a sequence of repeated thoughts and feelings, your brain and body will not know the difference between what is occurring in the outer world and what is happening in your inner world. So when you're fully engaged and focused, the inner world of imagination will appear as an outer world experience, and your biology will change accordingly. What you put your attention on and mentally rehearse over and over again not only becomes who you are from a biological perspective, it also determines your future. End quote. So in this section of chapter 2, he starts talking about the idea of mental rehearsal to the point where it kind of becomes your reality. Reminded me of the studies from years ago that show how our brain rehearses this, releases the same neurochemicals when we are in a modern stressful situation as we would have if we were a caveman being chased by a tiger. And that work was done by Hans Selye back in the 1950s. He put out a book called The Stress of Life. And that's a really amazing book about all of those chemical reactions and how the mental imagining or rehearsing is something that the body treats just the same as if it was really happening. So the good news, I guess you could say this is the good news about how our body responds to our thoughts. We produce the same neurochemicals when imagining a wonderful experience as we do when we're actually having that wonderful experience. So I'm thinking back to imagining hugging my horses and the positive brain chemicals that were flooding me at that moment. So to me, that means we could use that as a way to heal ourselves. If the negative chemicals that we release from, stress and unhappy thoughts create disease, then wouldn't it be possible to stay healthy by always flooding your brain with positive chemicals? Pages 39 through 41, quote, We now know that the science of epigenetics, through the science of epigenetics, that it's not the gene that creates disease, but the environment that programs our genes to create disease. And not just the external environment outside our body, cigarette smoke or pesticides, for example, but also the internal environment within our body, the environment outside our cells. What do I mean by the environment within our body? As I said previously, emotions are chemical feedback, the end products of experiences we have in our external environment. So when you change your emotions, you can change the expression of your genes, turning some on and others off, because you're sending a new chemical signal to your DNA, which can then instruct your genes to make different proteins, upregulating or downregulating to make all kinds of new building blocks that can change the structure and function of your body. End quote. So as I read this, I was thinking that it really explains why someone who appears to do all of the right things for their health can still develop some pretty serious diseases. When we repeat the same emotions over and over, we reproduce the same neurochemicals that tell our genes what to do. And if we can change the emotion, we can change the neurochemicals, giving the genes a chance to change our physical body. Change your thoughts equals changing your body. Page 42, quote, "If you've spent years conditioning your body to this cycle of thinking and then feeling and thinking without realizing it, you've also conditioned your body to become addicted to these emotions." So simply changing the external environment by, say, getting a new job doesn't necessarily break that addiction any more than someone addicted to drugs would be able to stop their cravings just by winning the lottery or moving to Hawaii. End quote. This one made me think about that saying, wherever you go, there you are. Yeah. How many times have we thought that, oh, if we could just change jobs or move to a new location, our entire lives would be different? Yeah, not so much. So this quote explains why, even though we might have made major life changes, we can still feel the way we did prior to that change. Page 44, this kind of goes along with that same idea. Quote, "Since where you place your attention is where you place your energy, when you wake up in the morning and immediately start putting your attention and energy on all the people you have to see that day, the places you have to go, the objects you own, and the things you have to do in the three-dimensional world, your energy becomes fractured. It begs the question, how much energy do you have left in your inner world of thoughts and feelings to create a new reality?" End quote. Pages 46 through 47. Quote, "Now let's take a closer look at how we end up getting addicted to our negative emotions, or more precisely what we call the hormones of stress. The moment we react to any condition in our outer world that tends to be threatening, whether the threat is real or imagined, our body releases stress hormones in order to mobilize enormous amounts of energy in response to that threat. After just one phone call or email from our boss or a family member that elicits a strong emotional reaction such as anger, frustration, fear, anxiety, sadness, guilt, suffering, or shame, we turn on the primitive fight or flight nervous system, causing us to react as if we were being chased by a predator. Such chronic stress response is not adaptive, it's maladaptive. When we're living in survival mode and those hormones of stress like adrenaline and cortisol keep pumping through our body, we stay on high alert instead of returning to balance. When this imbalance is maintained long term, chances are we're headed for disease because long-term stress downregulates the healthy expression of genes. In fact, our bodies become so conditioned to this rush of chemicals that they become addicted to them. Our bodies actually crave them. End quote. Wow. There's something to think about. The brain becomes addicted to the chemicals of stress and it searches them out. And we all know people who are always stressed, always moving from one stressful situation to the next. If you had a childhood full of uncertainty or abuse, your body and brain were trained to always be on alert. It's the same thing with your job or your family. If you're always on alert, waiting for that other shoe to fall, you're producing those chemicals of stress. The thing that really amazed me about this was the fact that it's an actual chemical addiction. And this is why people who say, oh, I've tried to change my negative thoughts and I just can't do it. I keep going back to my old thoughts. It's hard to be positive all the time. Well, this explains the reason for that. It's a chemical addiction. And like he said, you can't just cut off that chemical supply any more than you could if you were trying to come off an addiction from cigarettes or drugs. Pages 49 and 50, quote, if your attention and energy are bound to the same people, places, and things in the outside physical world, you can understand that it's going to take energy and effort to break those bonds when you're in meditation. The truth is that you could be using all that energy to recreate a new destiny. To do that, you're going to have to get beyond all those things in your outer world by taking your attention off them. That's why we use meditation as the model to change our internal state. Once you overcome your emotional body and you take your attention off everything known to you in your outer world, you call your energy back to you. You're going to have to go from being someone to being no one, taking your attention off your identity as a partner, a parent, and an employee. You'll have to go from keeping your attention on something to placing your attention on no thing, forgetting all about your cell phone, your emails, and getting a cup of coffee, and from being somewhere to being nowhere, getting beyond any thoughts about the chair you're meditating in or where you'll be going later today, and from being in linear time to being in no time, with no distracting memories or thoughts about the future. End quote. So this is where we're back to thinking of being in the moment again. And this is also where he starts to explain meditation as a way to break thought patterns and to regain the energy needed to create something new. It really shows the extent of energy and effort that's needed to reach a new state of mind, the no-thingness, so that you can create something new. He's really talking about breaking the habits of who we think we are. Almost finished with chapter 2. Pages 50 through 55, quote, the only way to do that is to learn to call all of that fractured energy back so you can overcome the emotions of survival that you've become addicted to and that keep all your energy bound to past present reality. Once you take your attention off all those exterior elements, you start to weaken your energetic and emotional bonds with those things, and you finally begin to free up enough available energy to create a new future. So let's say you're sitting in your meditation and you start to have some stray thoughts. You're sitting there trying to meditate, but your body is throwing the kitchen sink at you. That's because it wants its chemical fix of familiar emotions that you normally feel throughout your waking day with your eyes open. So you stop, return to the present moment, and once more disinvest your energy out of that predictable known future and make room for the unknown in your life. End quote. So in meditation, one of the things that people work on is not having random thoughts. But this part of the chapter helps us realize that the reason why you have those thoughts is that your body is looking for its usual flood of addicted chemicals. You might even find that during certain times of the day, it expects certain thoughts. And it's kind of like a child trying to get your attention and using escalating tactics to make it harder and harder for you to ignore them. So now that you're aware of what's going on, you can recognize the thoughts and put them aside for later if you want to. But the most important thing that I got out of this is that you stop and you return to the present and you put your energy on no thingness. And then each time you accomplish that, you're creating a new pattern of chemicals. All right. So that's the end of chapter 2. I hope to be posting chapter 3 within the next few days. Please be sure and subscribe and ring the bell. If you ring the bell, you'll get notified when I post the next chapters. Also, please feel free to use the comments section to start a dialogue with each other with your thoughts on these chapters. I would love to know what other people think. Thanks so much.